Here. Okay, thanks everyone for joining us for this afternoon's training webinar on the TNP Dashboard. My name is Michelle Akira, and I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's training webinar, or it might be morning, depending on where you are. So, goals for today's webinar, we will cover the TNP Dashboard, some of the shortcuts that will give you the ability to quickly, with one click, be able to access the tools and some of the layers, and you'll also be able to, those are just shortcuts to the different menu selections that we have. But this webinar is going to teach you how to easily pan to adjacent maps in the immediate area and locate different map types at different scales effortlessly. We'll be able to see the state regional map. I have a message here that the sound is lost. Can someone let me know if you can still hear? Paige, if you're here, if you could let me know if you can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you, folks, for letting me know that you can hear the sound. I guess Brett, I don't know, it must be an issue, Brettman, an issue with your computer, so you might want to check your settings. So back to our webinar, we'll learn how to easily go to the state regional map overview. We'll be able to also search the Terrain Navigator Pro map library by type and user-defined keyword. We'll be able to scroll through map views quickly. Also, some other goals that will be for this afternoon's webinar is how do you customize the TNP dashboard to your liking. You can set preferences there. You can also select the folder that you want to save maps to. You can use the TNP shortcuts for one-click access to the tools and the layers, easily get the elevation, grade, and distance and bearing for routes and other layers, such as range bearing lines. Learn how to delete layers such as markers, routes, tracks, and range bearing lines. And we'll finish up this afternoon's webinar with a question and answer. So just so we've got a screen here looking at the TNP dashboard. So we're going to be covering these items here, each of the different sections and so forth. So this is the overview of what we'll be looking at this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and open my Terrain Navigator Pro. So bear with me for 1 second, and then we'll open up Terrain Navigator Pro, and let's go ahead and dive in and access the different layers. So here we have Terrain Navigator Pro. You bear with me for 1 second. We'll bring that over here. Okay, and here you should see Terrain Navigator Pro. What I've done is created a project in Terrain Navigator Pro for this afternoon's webinar. Just a quick review for those of you that might not be aware. In the upper left-hand corner where you see Terrain Navigator Pro, you'll see the current state that is selected and then the name of your project. We did cover a webinar on projects. I would suggest that you visit the YouTube channel if you want to learn more about Terrain Navigator Pro projects. So I'm going to go ahead and I bookmarked a map view that I wanted to start our training with. And what you'll notice is this is the state of Montana. It's actually a map here. You'll see Billings, Montana right here. As some of you may know, we do have a brick and mortar building that's located there. And if you should need printed maps for your wall or, larger size maps, you can contact our MyTopo at www.mytopo.com, and those folks can help you to get printed maps. So that's a good thing to know. So anyway, I thought Billings would be a great starting location for the training. As you can see from this map, I have set dual coordinates. So we're looking at the TNP dashboard section here, and you'll see I have dual display of coordinates. My primary, which is the first one across the top here, I have set it to township section range, that's TSR, and my secondary coordinates are in degrees, minutes, seconds, and so that you can easily locate where you are with two different coordinate systems. Now, taking a look at our map, the red lines that you see here are the township lines, and the blue lines that you see inside here are the section lines. So if you, just a reminder, if you ever want to change your preferences for your coordinate systems, you can always go to the File menu, choose Preferences, go to Coordinate, and then you can set your coordinates however you like. So the thing to notice with, for some of you that are working in states that you are looking at township section range, you also turn on the custom grid layer so that you can see those township section lines. And custom grid, we'll cover this a little bit later, but it's under the layer size visibility. And then you can turn on your custom grid here. So that's a good thing to know. So let's get back and just talk a little bit about the base, the map overview that I have selected for today's training is this. It's a satellite photo with hybrid streets. So you'll see like some of the routes and so forth. If I zoom in, you would have the street names as well. And it's at a scale of 72,224, which you'll see is here in the drop-down list. So today I will be teaching you another way to move around the TNP map, views, besides using the Find menu. A lot of times in the past, we've gone to the Find if we wanted to locate a map, but we're going to look at some different ways, alternate ways to do that. So just as a quick review, if you do want to, let's say you have a map view that you particularly like, you can create that bookmark and you can go to the View menu and choose Bookmark This View. And then you'll be able to give it a name, and you can set a bookmark for a specific map view that contains the type of map and resolution. Oops. So, all right. So we're talking about, we're going to be looking right now. I'm going to take a look at and demystify some of the TNP icons and layers and things like that. But the first place we're going to start here is with the TNP Compass. And what I want to say about the TNP Compass control bar, a lot of people just think, oh, well, that's just indicating direction north. But did you know that you can also, if you're at a specific scale and resolution, you can use the compass bar and you can pan in any direction. So let's say north, south, east, west. So that's a way of easily getting adjacent map views without using the Find menu. So I'm going to return to my bookmark and we're going to go back to our map overview. So that looks familiar. And so you can use the compass tool to pan to adjacent views. I want to talk about the thumbnail sketch here that we have. This thumbnail map, as we can see here, gives us the location of the current map view that we're looking at relative to a larger size. And one of the things that you'll notice within this thumbnail is a rectangle. So if you wanted to move this, you can change your current map view with the thumbnail by just moving the blue rectangle. And one of the things that you can also do while you're in the thumbnail view is, let's say you wanted to zoom into a different scale. You could do that as well. So there's a lot of options that you have right at your fingertips to easily change map views and also the scale of the map as well. So let's go ahead and take a look now at the bottom, the arrows that we see under the thumbnail view. If I click on the up arrow, that's going to bring the section of map where I'm at here. It's going to give you step back like a bird's eye view. And again, same concept applies. You know, you can change the area or the map that you're looking at by selecting that blue rectangle. I'm going to go back here. A couple other things to notice with this bird's eye view is that you can also, in this window, either zoom in or zoom out. So a very handy feature if you have a geographic idea of, you know, the location that you're looking for, and you want to quickly be able to pan and access different maps and you know, different scales. So just wanted to go over that real quick. We'll go ahead and cancel this. The next thing that I'd like to go over is the down arrow. What that will do is, if you click on that, is a single click to the regional map. So this is the state of Montana, so we're able to quickly, you know, zoom out and get a panoramic or regional view map to be able to locate yourself within, you know, within the state. So I'm going to return to my bookmarked view. So if you bear with me for 1 second, we'll pull that up again. And here we are back at Billings. A couple of other things to talk about. The map that is underneath the up and down arrows allows you to see the position of the map within the state. So we're within the state of Montana. We're close to the southeast. So that is what that's about. I'd like to quickly also talk about the one window mode versus two window mode. I can easily set up a dual screen by clicking on the two window mode. And if I want to change, let's say I want to change one of these maps. Let's say I want the left-hand side map to be a different map type. As long as I use my cursor, I click, I select it, it's highlighted. I can then change, let's say I want to go to a topo. So I'm able to easily see the topo map side by side with that satellite image. So again, you would just select the dual display that you want to change the type of map to, and you can go ahead and use all the different map types here in Terrain Navigator Pro. So that's a handy way. Now let's talk about the this little icon that has it's got a lock in the middle. Let's say you want to synchronize your dual display of maps, so that when you drag a map, both of those drag at the same time. So I can easily synchronize the two map views and not have any loss. I'm going to go ahead and return back to my single window mode. And let's go ahead and take a quick review of what we've learned. We've demonstrated ways to pan to locate maps to different scales using the pan feature on the Compass toolbar so that we are able to locate adjacent areas to the current map. We also use the thumbnail map as a way to locate maps in the region. And also to scroll to different maps at different scales. We use the up and down button to locate maps, and also for the regional map overview. And lastly, we learned how to do split screens in Terrain Navigator Pro in two different map types simultaneously. We're going to go ahead now and take a look at the top TNP Dashboard toolbar. So when I'm referring to the toolbar, I'm looking at the top in the information and the different shortcuts and ways to do different things. Now, to start, what we're going to do is break these into 3 sections. And then at the end, we'll cover everything about the different maps and the scales and some of these buttons here. But for right now, I'd like to focus on 3 different sets of tools and shortcuts. So we're going to work with this first set right here, and we're going to look at the first icon in the first row here. So this is our regional overview. So if I select this tool, it's going to give me the regional. Again, it's another shortcut to the regional view of the map. I'm going to go ahead and change my topo back out to satellite. And we're going to put the streets on. Okay, so if we want to use that overview to get our position, we can click there. The second one that we're going to take a look at is the second icon here is the select the state or the region. So for some of you that have one or more states in your Terrain Navigator Pro subscription, you're able to, with one click, okay, go to a different state and go ahead and access the maps in that state. So that's a shortcut to your states that you have in your TNP subscription library. Going to continue on. So regional map overview. Second one is to select your state or region. Now your preferences is where you set the preferences. We talked at the outset that you would be able to set your preferences on your TNP dashboard controls. So you can select here which ones that you want to show or hide. You have different options here to, if you like the buttons larger or smaller, all kinds of different types of preferences that you can set. For now, I am going to keep these here, but there's, all kinds of different settings to set. So for example, if you didn't want to show the compass toolbar, you can unselect that, you can close that, and you'll see that the toolbar went away. So this is where you would, I'm just going to put that back in, but this is where you set those preferences. Moving along the next icon here, the fourth one, from the left is a shortcut to the print menu. We did cover printing in last month's webinar, so I'm not going to go into that, but just to show you that with one click you can access your print by using that icon. Now, here's an important shortcut. It's to find place. And what's nice about this is you can select within the map, TNP map library, the type of map that you would like to search on. So let's say you want to search on, let's say, aerial. And what you can do is then type in a keyword. So let's say, for example, within the state, you have a particular keyword. I'll use the word Yellowstone here. Terrain Navigator Pro will come up with a number of different types of place names that you can go ahead and pull up the active map for. So this is an alternate way for you to search the map library on keyword. So let's say I wanted to go to this map here, Tongue Yellowstone River Irrigation. I can go ahead and select that from the list. I can replace it, and it becomes my current map view. So far, so good. Just a few more quick things here with regard to this grouping. This first grouping, you'll see the bar here. This is for the previous view. So you can go to the previous view to that specific map, or you could go forward and go to the next view. I'd also like to mention this last icon on this, on the second hand, on that left side, is quick print. Quick print is used if you want to print the current map view without having to go through setting all the preferences. So in other words, when you click on that one button there, it immediately goes to your printer that has been set up. So that's a nice shortcut as well. Okay, so that's covered that first grouping on the TNP dashboard control bar. I want to now highlight this middle section, which many of you are familiar with. So again, you know, context sensitive here when we're looking at the tools. So in other words, the tool that's highlighted is what is going to be displayed. We did cover this in depth before, but just a couple of quick things here with this grouping of tools. Many of you might be familiar with them, but we're just going to go over them quickly. So the first one, the dash box, gives you the ability to select a user-defined area on a map. So let's say you want to focus in on this area here. This red circle just denotes the center of the map. You can just click on that, left click on that, and that will go away. So back to our user-defined rectangle, it allows you, and we covered this in other training, so I'm not going to go over that, but it allows you to export maps and a bunch of nice features. So that's the user-defined selection tool. If I click on the box, one of the edges of the pink box, I am able to do a number of things. I can export it to a GPS, for example, or, you know, different things. I can create a map pack and save that map pack to the local hard drive so that it is easy. It's not coming down from the TNP cloud. To clear the selection, you select the last entry here, and that will erase the user-defined tool. Moving along, the next tool, the second one in the second grouping, is your zoom in tool, so you can scale in easily. If I select that and I say, okay, I want to go in at a specific location, I can quickly use that tool to zoom in on the maps. So a very handy tool as well. Many of you might be familiar with the hand tool. You can easily drag the map if you want to be at the scale and go to a different location easily. The next tool is the label tool on the TNP dashboard. And let's say, let me go back to my hand tool. And let's say I wanted to label this house. I can choose the tool to label. I can enter all my information. I can move the label around wherever I want and go ahead and, you know, create a label for that specific thing. The next tool that I want to cover in this afternoon's webinar is the distance tool. And I'm going to take the distance tool, these two icons here together. These are very, very important. These distance tools, so again, I'm going to refer to both of them, the straight line and the curved line one here, these two icons. We use these distance tools to quickly measure distance or area. The icons are for easy measurements and will only be displayed temporarily on the screen, so it doesn't leave a layer or a mark on the map like if you placed a label or a route or a track. So this information is just kept there temporarily. Now, what's the difference between the tool? The difference between these two tools here is the top one is for straight line measurements, including segment length and bearing and total length. So let me go ahead and let's say I'm going to just zoom out of this map just for a little bit. Let's say, for example, we had a straight line and we wanted to know the distance, let's say from this building to this building here, for example. We can draw a straight line, and we'll get a distance that's there temporarily. It tells us that it's 801 feet. Now, one of the things to mention about this is that if I look if I right click on this distance tool, I have a submenu, and there's different information that I can get on this tool. So, for example, if I bring up the distance tool, it will tell me what the start is, what the start elevation is in feet and meters. Those preferences can be changed under, if you go to File, General, go to File Preferences, and then you can change those if you don't want it in feet and meters. But it will also give you the heading. It will tell you how many points, etc. So there's a lot of good information. You can also, if you're using the distance tool, go ahead and do things like create a route or a track. You would give this a name. Let's say we wanted to call this, Joe's track. And so you can quickly, using those distance tools, convert it again to a track or a route or polygon. You can also get profile information, which is very handy. Again, I'm left clicking and I can get different information. I can get the elevation, I can get the grade. If there was one, I can export this and print this as well. So a lot of useful map information with these distance tools. Now, one of the things that we want to note is that if I click and hold on the mouse button down, so let's say I've got my distance and I go ahead and let me go ahead and create another distance. If I hold this down, what I would like you to notice is that if I left click on this distance at the bottom left-hand side of Terrain Navigator Pro, you'll see some good information. With that straight line distance tool, in the lower left-hand corner of Terrain Navigator Pro, you'll see, let me go ahead and hold that down again. You'll see pan length, you'll see the segment length, you'll see the bearing, the elevation change, and the segment grade. So again, a very easy shortcut to get very useful information on the map. I am left clicking on the mouse on top of the distance that I have created. So again, left click on the mouse, lower left-hand side, TNP will give you some useful technical information. Now, I'm going to go ahead and let me clear that particular distance tool. I want to cover the one that's underneath. And so this bottom tool, distance tool, you'll see it's a little bit curved. This is for curved measurements. So let's say we had a little bit of a curve and we were going up this way, for example, from this building to this building. If I left click on that, you'll see at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, again, it says path length, and it will give you the length, 700, some odd feet there. So let me go ahead, and again, from a curved, you can also convert it to a polygon, a route, or a track. You can, do a number of things, get the profile. You can print this and export it as well. So that's basically the primary difference between these two tools. The straight line one is going to give you additional information that the curved one does not, again, by left clicking when you have that tool selected. I'm going to go ahead and clear out these two. Bear with me for just a second here. We're going to go ahead and clear these out. And we have this one as a track, so we're all set. So again, those are the two distance tools in Terrain Navigator Pro. And once again, just to reiterate, if you're using the straight line distance tool, which is the top one, you also get segment length and bearing. So the sixth icon is the marker tool. Many of you are familiar with that. Let's say you wanted to place a marker. You would select that off the TNP dashboard and locate the item or position that you want to place a marker at. And you can left click if you want to change the marker information. Right click on it. You can click on edit marker. You can change the name. So let's say, we just want to change this to Joe's house and call that marker Joe's house. We can change a lot of preferences by right clicking. I won't go over all of these, but I think you get the general idea there. So that's the marker tool. We also have the range ring tool, which is very handy. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit here. Let's say you wanted to place a range ring. You would select the tool off the TNP dashboard, and you can go ahead and left click on the position that you want the origin to be. It will give you some information. I'm going to select, I right click and I choose information. I can get information on the ring interval, the number of rings that I have, the total ring area, the elevation, and some good information here. I can also click on the print button if I wanted to print this. Let's say you wanted to edit the range ring. You can go ahead and select on that. Let's say you didn't want 5 range rings, maybe you only wanted 3, or maybe you knew the exact position that you wanted to locate the range ring for. You can set it here in the bottom part of this window, so you can set it by position, or you can set it by distance and time. Many times our search and rescue folks that are using Terrain Navigator Pro use range rings. An example of that is to set up their search sectors when they're out on a search. So this is a good tool to be able to do that. So that is our range ring tool. I'd like to talk about the next item. The 8th icon on the top left is the track tool. So if I go ahead and select that, I can create a track. Let's say the track goes from the Yellowstone River here, and maybe it goes down to this road here. It will tell me what the distance is, and then I can right click and finish the track. Now this track tool, once you'll see it has a beginning, which is in green, and then the last position is in red. What's nice about that is that you can, again, right click on this tool. You can edit this track. So again, you can give the track a name. You'll see the list of your available tracks. You can set preferences as far as you'd like, as far as color, etc. One of the nice things that you can do easily also is create a route from here as well. The difference between a track and a route will have waypoints in between. You could also create a polygon if you wanted to. So right clicking gives you the ability to do a number of things, to see all of your tracks, to be able to set your preferences or convert it to a different type of layer on the TNP map. And that layer could be, as we talked about, a route or a polygon. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So taking a look at the track tool, let me just go ahead and right click on that track again. There's a number of different things that you can do from that as well. You can also get information like a quick profile for your particular track. Gives you the grade, elevation. You can, again, get more information and print that as well. So I really encourage you, when you're using the tools, if you right click, it will bring up a sub menu that will allow you to do different things, to name that layer, whatever it is, whether it's the range ring or the track. It will allow you to set your preferences for that as well. So we're going to continue moving along in this section, and we're going to move to the bottom, the first TNP icon on the second row, and let's take a look at information. Let's say there's a specific thing on the map that we wanted to get more information from. We could select that tool. Let's say we wanted to get some information on the map here. It will give us the state name. It will tell us about the map, and again, some more good information that you can use. You can print that from here as well. Let's say the information is that you want to get information on the track that you just created. You can get all kinds of technical information. So again, that information tool applies both to the map, but also to your tools as well. I can click on the range ring that I created and get some more technical information here. So alternate easy ways to get good technical information from our layers is with the information tool. The next tool, the second tool, is the scale out tool. If I select that, and let's say I had a specific area and I wanted to scale out, I could select that off of the toolbar and easily scale out over that location. Many of you are familiar with the third icon on the bar. It's the center tool. So if I select that, and let's say I wanted my map view to be centered over a specific area. In other words, I want the center of the map to be at my location on my map, on my mouse cursor. I can go ahead and click on that, and you'll see the map centers on that location. A couple of other things here. The next one, the fourth TNP icon, is the Geo Pin. That's to be able to drop a pin at a specific location. And what you can do is go ahead and, let's say you had a picture or a Word document that you wanted to attach to the map, always at that location. You would use the Geo Pin. You can browse your computer and you can find, you know, whether it's a JPEG or whatever type of file. So again, could be a Word document, could be a multimedia file, could be whatever you want to locate on that map from your computer. So moving along, we've already covered the curved distance tool. So we're going to go ahead to the next one, which is our route tool. The route tool does allow you to create a route on the map. So let's say let's go ahead and zoom in. So I'm going to zoom in to the map. And let me just grab my drag tool for a second here. Let's say I wanted to create my route. So I'm going to go ahead and select my route here, and maybe my route starts at the top here. Maybe it comes down along the river, maybe it crosses the river here, and maybe it ends here. So you'll see I've created a route. If I right-click on that, I can edit the route. I can edit the waypoints. So for example, if I wanted to go ahead, I can give the route a name. I can change my preferences for the color and the symbology, etc. And can also do create a polygon here and some shortcuts there. So let me go ahead and go back here. I'm going to right click. Some of the important things you can do with this in this menu. We won't go over all of these, but I do suggest that you go ahead on your own time and explore some of these sub menus for the route tool. You can do a number of different things. You can even send it to Google Earth, for example. Okay, so just continuing to move along here, we also have the range bearing line tool. So I'm going to select that, left clicking on the mouse, and the range, let's say I knew that I had a range and a bearing, and maybe it starts here. TNP will give you the range bearing line. Now, if I left click on the range bearing line that I just created, again, lower left-hand corner, you'll see the range, and then you'll see the bearing. So left clicking on the range bearing line will give you some good information as well. So the range bearing tool is a good one for range and bearing as well. The last one that we will cover in this second grouping of icons will be the Polygon tool. So I'm going to go ahead and select the Polygon tool. Let's say I had this polygon, this area right here, and I want to quickly get the area, the acreage, and the perimeter. What I do is left click as close as I can, and Terrain Navigator Pro, you'll see, will begin to fill in some of these lines. You can left click and get precise, a precise polygon. You'll see that represented by the shaded area here. I can go ahead and finish. And if I right click on the polygon, there's also, you can edit the polygon, you can get the information on the polygon, you quickly get the area of this polygon at 105.89 acres, etc. You get the perimeter at 1.7583 miles. So a great way to get area and acreage. You can also edit the polygon, give it a name like we've discussed previously. So a great way to get information using the Polygon tool. So that is the Polygon tool. I want to go ahead and move now to the third grouping of icons here. And this grouping, so I'm looking between these two bars here. So we're looking at these 8 icons. And what we want to do is note that these shortcut items are grayed out unless you have a specific route or track or something selected. So if you don't have any tool selected from here, these items will be grayed out. So it is context sensitive. So you choose the tool off the TNP dashboard. So let's say, for example, if we went to our range bearing line, you'll see that I left click, it's selected on the map. And now you'll see all of these icons have been, they're not grayed out, you can access them. So the grouping of 4 apply to the layer object. So these are going to apply to the layer object, whether it's a marker, a route, or a track, or a range bearing line, for example. Each of those are layers on the map. And it's a shortcut to the right-click button that performs the same function for that object. So, for example, we had talked about right-clicking on the range bearing tool, but if we went to the first icon and my range bearing tool is selected, I will get the same information. That is a shortcut to the profile. So again, all kinds of useful information here, total distance, ground distance, climbing and ascending feet, et cetera, 8% grade. You've got a beautiful graph that you can also export and print. So a very good way to, with one click, again, with the tool that's selected, go ahead and get the profile of that. If I changed my tool, let's say I went to, let's say it was the route tool, and I select that, you'll see my route is now highlighted. I can now select the profile, and it will give me the profile on that particular route. So one-click access to profile is a great way to get information from the map very quickly, which is a great way to do that. One of the next things that I do want to talk about is the next. So the first one here, as we mentioned, that's your profile. The next icon, again, let's go ahead and I'm going to select my range bearing tool. Then we'll go ahead and display the line of sight. Line of sight is a great feature that's been put into Terrain Navigator Pro. The profile plots the change of elevation over the entire line. Grade is a function along the path. Use line of sight to determine if I can see the end from the beginning without anything blocking my view. This is especially useful for cell tower users, people that are looking at cell tower placement to see if there's anything that would be blocking the view of the satellites, or if it would be a good place, let's say, to place 2 cell towers. You'd be able to get this information quickly and easily and affordably in Terrain Navigator Pro. I'm going to go ahead and, so that's our line of sight shortcut. Let's continue with the third icon, which is our shortcut to the layer size visibility. Again, if I click on this, I am able to change the layer size easily, with a scale. If the map is getting too busy or you have too many layers and you want to adjust the size of the layers, you can do that with the scale bar. You can also conform the layer size to the map scale if you so wish. And layer visibility is going to let you turn on or off custom layers in Terrain Navigator Pro. Let's say we don't want to display our layers, our labels, or maybe there's another thing that we don't want to display. We can hide that here with layer size visibility, selecting it in layers. Go ahead and choose and close, and you'll see that that has gone. I'm just going to go back to that shortcut real quickly and just bump up our layer size so we can see that a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and choose close here. And so we have a shortcut to our layer size visibility. Let's go ahead and toggle 3D view will give you instant access to a 3D of your specific map. It also has the layers that you've drawn on that. You can also rotate that. 3D view, perhaps we'll cover that in a future webinar all on its own, but also gives you an idea of the terrain. Let's go ahead, and if I click on the 3D toggle view, that will turn off that. Let's go ahead and move to the first icon in the second row of this grouping. This first icon is a shortcut to the active layer object. So again, let's go ahead and select one of our tools. Let's say it's the range bearing tool. You'll see that that has been highlighted. And if I go ahead, I can get information. So this is, again, one stop, quickly getting the information on the specific tool, context sensitive, depending on the tool that you have selected. So this is an information type tool. If I changed my tool, let's say we went to our route tool, and I click on information, then I can also get some quick information on that as well. Let me go ahead, select my route. I see that that's highlighted, and you'll see, again, information on the route, including the waypoints, the distances, the bearings, the elevation. Again, one stop with the press of a button. You can get the profile, the line of sight. You can also print this if you need to include it in a report or something like that. So easy access to get around the active layer project. Couple of things here with that information tool. There's a great field here, let's say on this particular route, that you wanted to include some information here, maybe, you can type in what you want to include as far as keeping track of specific notes that are personal to that particular route. You could do that in the notes section. I'm going to close out of that. Dennis, I will take your question here. And the question is how does TNP transfer a track or a route to a closed polygon? So Dennis, when we're transferring a track or a route to a closed polygon, I'm going to ask Ed for a quick answer to your question as far as how it does that behind the scenes. So I have Ed here. He's the product manager. And Ed, if you could just quickly.
So, it basically gives you the option to filter out track points. Let me just give an example. Ironically, I was just helping another customer with the same issue. So let's draw our track, and I'm going to do it exactly the wrong way, which a lot of people do, which was I just drew a circle, and I held down my mouse. Okay, and I'm going to finish that track. And what I've done is created a track with a lot of points. If I were to get the information on that track, I'd see that I've created a track with 478 points. That's a lot of data for a little circle. If I were to, all of those points now are, being rendered every time I grab the hand tool and I move around. When I create a new polygon from that track, I can right click on it, create polygon. It gives me the option at that point to filter out some of those track points. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll say, let's create a polygon, but only make it so that the track points are, the vertices are within 10 feet of each other. And I'll just note that a USGS topo map, each pixel, in other words, a dot that makes up a USGS topo map, is roughly 12 square feet. So we're dealing with pretty fine resolution if we say keep it within 10 feet. I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to take those 400 track points and convert it down to 70. Is it OK? And you'll see that it created a polygon. It matches that track exactly, but is far less intensive for rendering and drawing. And if I were to hide the track, and then we'll grab the Polygon tool, you'll see each of the vertices that make up that polygon. So that's behind the scenes what TNP does when it is creating a new polygon from a track. Dennis, does that answer your question?
Well,
How about an open track? Okay. Well, what it's going to do, let's take that example, and we'll take the track tool again, and this time I'll make a U. Finish. What it's going to do when I create that track, create that polygon from the track, and again, I'm going to keep it within 10 feet. You'll see that it created a straight line between the start and the end point. And that's how it handles the case of an incomplete or unclosed figure if you started with an unclosed track or an unclosed route or an unclosed distance tool measurement. Any other questions, Dennis? Grade and slope. Grade and slope, remember, is going to be on a particular spot. So you can't really get a grade of a polygon. It's calculated on a particular spot. So I would do that on the track and choose the profile. And here's the profile of that track from the start point to the end point over time as I'm going over the area here, you'll see that right here at this point, it's got a grade of 33%, but over here it's got a grade of 4%. So that's a function of line and not a function of area, and it's specifically a spot on a line. I think this is getting kind of a little bit off of the tangent here of the tools that are available in Terrain Navigator Pro as far as just an overview of the toolbar, but any other questions in this regard?
Okay, so thank you, Ed, for that. And I think if you have any other questions of those types, you can also email support at tmpsupport@trimble.com. If you have specific tool questions or those things, we'll also cover the help as well. So let's go ahead and continue the discussion that we were having on the toolbar. We talked about being able to get information by the tool that has been selected. That's the second, in this grouping. Third grouping, that's the first icon on the second row. The next one is the delete. So whatever tool has been selected, you can easily delete that, and I can click and say yes to that. You'll see that my items, my layers, that has been grayed out. So let's go ahead and grab, let's say we want to go back to our range bearing tool. We can go ahead and select that. You'll see these tools are no longer grayed out. So that's the delete tool. Toggle layers will allow you to turn the layers quickly on or off and be able to access the map underneath without the layers with one click. The last icon in this third grouping is sync with Aerial Air Imagery. So I can easily, with one click, go ahead and say, okay, I want to sync this with the aerial photo. You'll see that I have, let's say I have this one here selected. I can go ahead and choose a topo, and it will go ahead and sync that. But those are different ways to easily sync up. And if you wanted to return to the one window view, you would go ahead and go to one window mode, and that will bring you back to not having to just the map overview without the sync to aerial imagery. So that is a good thing to have. This button, I did miss something here that I did want to mention. When you sync with aerial imagery, you can get more than just aerial photos here. If you always want to sync with a different type of map, let's say you don't want it to sync with aerial, but you want to sync it with a different type, you can always go to the File menu. You can choose Preferences, and then you go to General, and then you can go ahead and sync image map type here. In the Preferences window, you can choose a different type of map to always sync with. So let's say you want it always to sync with a topo. You can go ahead and click Close. Let me go ahead and return to my one button view or my one screen view. Click on this, and you'll see that it syncs up with the topo that I selected. So you can customize. It doesn't just sync with aerial, but you can also set that preference as well. I'm going to return to my one screen view. And so those are ways that you can easily access the maps in the TNP map library. I'm just going to go over a couple of things here. We're almost done. Of course, many of you are familiar with this drop-down menu that allows you to change the map scale. You can easily, if you don't see, let's say in the drop-down list for your resolution, maybe you want it at 5,000 and it's not in the list. You can go ahead and tell Terrain Navigator Pro, I want a map in this area at 1 in 5,000. Go ahead and press return, and it will bring you to your own customized view, or not view, but scale. Of course, many of you are familiar, we covered this in a different Terrain Navigator Pro webinar, the different map types, the different ways you can select maps, different merges that you can do with Terrain Navigator Pro. So a lot of exploring that you can do on your own. Let me go back to the satellite view, and I'm also going to zoom out just a bit here. So again, access the different maps directly from the drop-down lists. There's a couple of other things here I just want to mention quickly. Again, you can scale in using the button for scale in. You can also scale out as many times as you want using those buttons. Now, this middle button that has it says actual size. This particular shortcut on the TNP dashboard, a lot of people are not aware of, but what it does is it gives you the best resolution at the nearest scale. So, for example, let's say, I had some scale that I just typed in here, and I click OK. And let's say we go ahead and type that in one more time. Let's say it's, something like this, a 1 in 1,000, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go ahead and press enter. The map at actual scale will clarify and make sure that the map that is being presented to you is at the best resolution. So if you are not able to see, let's say some text that's on the map, it will bring up the map that has the best text. Let me go ahead and I'm going to return back to my bookmark. So bear with me for a second. I'm going to go back to my overview, replace my active map. And one of the things, again, let's say I was here and I was at, let's say, the satellite photo. We've got, some streets here, but we want to see the best resolution. We could click on that middle button here, and it will give you the best resolution and at that particular scale. So last thing here is the help. If you go ahead and click on the question mark, this is an easy way for you to learn more about Terrain Navigator Pro by topic. You can select one from the list here, or if you have a specific keyword, you can type that in as well. If you wanted to learn more about markers, for example, you can go ahead and click on markers, and it will allow you to go to markers or to laters or those sorts of things. So thanks to Ed LeClaire for keeping our Terrain Navigator Pro help up to date and for concisely explaining different things. So there's more that you can explore on your own. The last thing here is the, as we mentioned, the dual display of coordinates. So I think that wraps things up here. I'd like to go ahead now that we have finished kind of going over and demystifying some of the tools, some of the shortcuts. They are shortcuts to specific things that are on the TNP pull-down menus. So I'd like to go ahead and take this time and open this up for questions. If you have any questions, if you want to unmute yourself, or if you want to type it in the chat, let's go ahead and take some questions on the TNP dashboard. Robert, you are welcome. Thank you, Robert Hobbs, for joining this afternoon. Glad to see you. Any questions? If you want to unmute yourself or type it in the chat. Neil, thank you so much, Neil Van Dyke. Neil, it was good to see you in Vermont a couple of months ago for the SAR training, so thank you for joining us, Neil. Paige has a quick note here. If you want detailed answers to specific questions, send them to tnpsupport@trimble.com. Denise Walker, thank you so much for joining. Good to see you again. Dennis, you have a question here. Do I understand correctly that the grade calculation is either for a point or a line? So the grade calculation, I think Ed was mentioning, and Ed, the grade calculation there, is it for the point or the line or at the particular location?
It's at a point along a line. So let's find someplace. Browse category, summit, and let's pick a mountain somewhere. All right, and let's look at a topo map so that we can make a comparison. And again, this is kind of beyond the scope of what we're covering in this webinar, but that's okay. All right, so here's a topo map, and I'm going to zoom in at that scale. Beautiful. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab the distance line, just because it's a line tool. It could be any tool, and I want to determine the scope, the grade from here. Well, we've got a leftover distance line, so grade from here to the top of the mountain. Okay, and if we use the profile tool, you'll see that it is goes up, and then grade at a particular spot right here along this path, it's a 7% grade. If I were to get up a little close up here, a 68% grade. So it's quite a distant a change over time. You say, well, how do I know what's what? Well, if I use this tool right here, right at that spot, it's showing a 6% grade. And if you look at the map, you say, yep, that looks about right. The topo lines line up to a relatively flat area. If I were to go up here, you see that there's a lot of contour lines that are going up over that that area. And yeah, 68% grade, that's probably right at that spot. So that is how you can generate a spot grade at a particular location along a predefined path, whether that path or line be a distance line, a route line, a track line. Dennis, does that answer that? All right, terrific.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining this afternoon's webinar. We look forward to seeing you next month. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day. And if you've RSVP'd, I'll send you the link to the YouTube, to the video once it's been posted to the Terrain Navigator Pro YouTube channel. So once again, Noellen, thank you for your acknowledgement, and hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Once again, thanks for joining.